when we're in a situation like that, we can soul fragment. And what that means is our body is made up of layers of energy, of templates of light and sound. So you've got the physical layer, this physical one, we've got the energetic body, the mental body, the spiritual body, and these layers go out like the layers of an onion. When we go through something that feels traumatic to us, the inner goddess, the inner feminine mother part of us can fracture and fragment from the whole, and it literally feels like we're beside ourselves, like there's a part of us that's moved out of us, and I call that soul fragmentation. And there is an audio on my website to help bring up to 3 parts of 3 soul fragmentations back into the system. So if you've got 12, you use it 4 times, it would bring all 12 back into your body and realign you on an energetic level. So that soul fragmentation is one of the critical factors in something people refer to as post-traumatic stress or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which can be linked to childbirth and many other things as well: divorce, the death of a pet, the death of a loved one, an operation, an illness, domestic abuse, rape, sexual abuse, anything like that causes us to soul fragment. And very often you will hear people say, I've never felt the same since, or I feel like a piece of me is missing. If you ever have said anything like that yourself, or hearing people say it, it's probably because they've got a part of their energetic field discombobulated from the rest of their field. They're not in harmony, and I refer to that as a soul fragment, a soul fragmentation. And certainly I've never come across any women that have given birth that haven't had that kind of experience. Some are very lucky, and these soul fragments will go out for a short period of time, maybe days, maybe a few weeks, and then naturally everything falls back into place. But more often than not, that doesn't happen. So we go home, we have the baby, whereas we used to be in hospital for 10 days back in the days, and we were taken care of. Now we're in and out in a day, 2 max. And I was only in hospital 1 night with my first child, and it was a big deal. I went home feeling very discombobulated, with a lot of stitches and a lot of pain, and having been up for 2 days and exhausted, and was just expected, to get on with it. Luckily, I had older sisters and a very kind mum that helped me out, but not everyone has that. So we've got soul fragmentation happening to us. This can lead to any energies that are in the vicinity coming into that space, and that, in that kind of environment, you're looking at a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Those frequencies can come into that space, and they can be affecting us for the rest of our life, which affects our relationship with our children and our partners and so on. You've also got the aspect of trauma by proxy. Now, trauma by proxy is what we experience through watching or listening to a story or images of somebody else having a traumatic experience. And that's where the husbands, the partners, can have problems, because they're watching this. They may be watching the episiotomy, and it can get messy down there, let's be honest, and that can traumatize them. That can also interlinked with the female losing the inner goddess, who is like, I'm out of here, this is too much for me, I can't cope with this anymore, and leaves the building, kind of, so to speak. And that can also linked with a husband or partner that's had feeling traumatic, the trauma by proxy. Secondary trauma is another name for it as well. This can affect your relationship. It can affect your libido, which that affects the bonding in the relationship, and all sorts of problems on top of trying to heal and trying to deal with this beautiful little soul that's come a blessing in our lives, but is probably keeping us up most of the night. And they're demanding. They're very demanding in those early months and years. And women are so busy that they're not getting the opportunity to understand what's going on with them. This can lead to postpartum, which I've read can last up to 7 years, serious postnatal depression. And So we've got PTSD, we've got complex PTSD for women that may have had a lot of children and, you know, a lot of trauma during giving birth. And we've got things like postpartum depression, anxiety, and all of this stuff isn't really talked about. It's not, people aren't given the attention, the healing that they need to deal with all this trauma. And then we've got life going on, you know, around all of that, where yes, pets die, people die, we lose jobs, partners lose jobs, accidents happen, operations, all sorts of trauma that is left in our systems that need to be dealt with and are not being dealt with. How many women out there do you know that are falling into this kind of category of these kind of problems that I'm talking about today? I'd really, you know, love you to give some feedback in the comments below. So we've got those things going on. Obviously, you've got the hormonal changes as well to be dealing with, and we go home exhausted, often with stitches, and we're fragmented, and we're expected to just get on with it. Well, this takes its toll. Women are strong. We are warrior goddesses. We are strong, and we do just get on with it because that's what we do. Most of us just get on with it. But it doesn't mean that the trauma's gone away. The trauma's still there. The trauma gets stored in our systems, in our cell memory. And if we don't deal with it later in life, it can cause us a lot of problems. Think about the older people that you know that have got aches and pains in their joints and this and that, and they're hunching over and all kinds of conditions. Most of that is linked to diet and the lack of dealing with emotional, psychological trauma, just the everyday traumas that we have in life, like, you know, as I said earlier, people dying, accidents, domestic stuff going on, and even your children growing up and going to, you know, college or university can be very traumatic for mothers, very traumatic indeed. So all of these things need to be dealt with. If we don't deal with them later in life, they can turn into health issues and some really serious health issues as well. So have a think about your situation, what you've been through, and are you, you know, do you need to have some help to clear these things from your system, or do your friends need it? And start to share the information. So that's a lot of what happens to the mother. But let's have a little look at what happens to the baby.